Hi, this is Dan from Tiny Home Builders. The first step in our build is going to be acquiring the materials and supplies. I've broken this out into three categories. The first one is trailer, and then you've got the building materials, and then finally the tools that you're going to need to complete the job. With a trailer, you can either go with a custom trailer that's made to your specifications, or you can find a used trailer. Now, with a custom trailer, the nice thing is that everything comes brand new. It's the foundation of your house. You know what you're getting. So I personally have always bought new trailers. With a new trailer, though, you have to account for there's going to be several weeks for it to build. So it's probably one of the things that takes the longest amount of time in the acquiring material step. With a used trailer, you can get it right away, assuming that you can find one. The only issue that you have then is that it may need some time. You may need additional time to restore it, because more than likely a used trailer, unless you find something that's fairly new, it's going to have rust on it. It's going to need to be cleaned up and be restored. In the building materials, there's several different categories. There's the general materials that you're going to need, which you can usually just get at Home Depot. The windows, and then the roof, windows and doors really. So the general materials. I've got a materials list with our plan package that you can use to just take to Home Depot. It'll take them a couple hours to put together a quote. You're going to want to have them send that to the bid room, and when you have them send it to the bid room, they're going to come back with a better price for you. Now, the materials is probably going to be that you're going to be getting from Home Depot is probably going to be in the range of $10,000 if you don't buy the roof there and you don't buy the trailer there, obviously. So to get the deal, you have to spend at least $2,500. So you can actually break up the order into multiple orders and still get the value pricing. And I actually recommend that, because if you can get everything right in the very beginning, the problem is that if it takes you 4 months to complete the build, then some of the materials that you won't be using for 4 months just sit around. And for a lot of things like a toilet that's porcelain, that doesn't really matter. But for the trim wood, it does matter. So you don't want to leave the trim wood that's going to be exposed, that you're going to see the most, be exposed to the elements sitting out. Now, if you have a warehouse or you're going to be storing the materials in the garage, that's obviously not as big of a concern. The next thing is the windows. The windows, I've also ordered all those from Home Depot. Those take several weeks to deliver because they have to have them custom built. You can buy windows that are pre-built at Home Depot, but I've never found the size that I want. They're generally a little bit cheaper. And then also the ones that I've seen are, in my area, they're just plain unfinished wood, so they're not the high material, the quality of materials that you get with some of the custom windows where they're aluminum clad. Now this takes a couple weeks, like I said, but you're not going to need it like the other materials on day one, so it's not as important to have it right away. So you can, it's not going to hold you up waiting for the windows. Finally, there's the roof. Now Home Depot does offer, and the big box retailers, Lowe's, they do offer to supply roofs. The problem that I've had with ordering from them is that the people that are working there just aren't as knowledgeable on the roofs. So I've had a little bit better luck finding local manufacturers. If you're fortunate enough to have one in the area, I would definitely recommend that. They just provide better service. When you go to them, you can show them your plans, and they'll talk you through and walk you through all the steps that and all the figure out what you need, as opposed to someone at Home Depot that's really just capable of taking an order and not so much as planning out a roof. In my experience, they've also had a faster turnaround time because you're dealing directly with the manufacturer. I've gotten a roof as quickly as the next day. And then also, if you're shy a part or a piece gets scratched and you need to get a replacement, if you're dealing with a local manufacturer, it's much easier to get a replacement. Sometimes there's a delivery charge when you deal with a big box retailer, and so if you have to go back and get a single piece, you have to wait the extra time, and then you have to pay an extra delivery fee. So that's just things to consider if you're fortunate enough to find somebody that can supply that locally. And then also, I like to order the roof almost right when I need it, maybe just a little bit beforehand. First off, I like to take the measurements from the actual house as opposed to the plans, because by the time you get up to the roof, there could be slight differences, and you don't want to come up with a roof that's too short. You do have quite a bit of play when you put the ridge cap on, and you'll see what I'm talking about later on. But things don't have to be as exact as you might imagine, and they do that on purpose so that things don't have to be perfect. But But you know, I personally just like to measure when it gets a little bit closer. And then also, you definitely don't want the roof to get scratched because it's got a coating on it that protects it from rusting. And so if you were to scratch it, if you were to have it laying around for an extended period of time and it got scratched, then you know, your roof likely will rust. So you want to be a little bit careful with that. So it's just better just to not have it laying around. So the final section is tools. Tools can be really expensive. You know, the price of tools adds up, and then you've got all these tools that you may not even necessarily want at the end of the build. So there's a temptation to do it with as little as possible. And I know there's one of the biggest builders out there for tiny houses. You know, his ad is that you can build a house with 14 tools. You can do it, but you know, it's going to be very, very difficult on you. So I highly recommend, you know, getting as much as you're comfortable with. The nice thing is that if you buy used tools, if you look on Craigslist and buy used tools, you can often sell them. You're going to put so little wear on them that you can often sell them for the same price as what you purchased them for. I used to live in an apartment where you had to, in California, you had to supply your own refrigerator. Well, I would buy a used refrigerator online, use it for a year, and then sell it online at the same place and get the exact same price that I paid for it. So I could have rented the refrigerator. The apartment complex offered to rent it for $25 a month, but I essentially got it for free just by buying it and selling it. So, you know, perhaps you can use the same technique with the tools to get your tools almost for free. You know, I don't recommend renting tools. If you rent an air compressor, you know, the air compressor is great for the framing, and then it's also great for the interior. You could easily eat up the price of an air conditioner or an air compressor while you're renting it, especially if you're able to sell it at the end. Because, you know, the temptation for an air compressor is, what am I going to do with an air compressor at the end of this build? So you may think you want to rent it, but there are very inexpensive air compressors. They're not the highest quality, but I've seen them with a gun for as cheap as $60. So you know, you'd get a higher quality one if you rented it, but you don't necessarily need a higher quality one for what you're going to be doing. So that's it, and please look at the documentation, and thanks for listening.